Welcome to another episode of the DaysToHappy Podcast. I am happy to have my friend Kraig Smikel with me. Kraig is one of those friend-enemy kind of guys, but we coach rugby, and he is one of the best head coaches I have ever met. His teams have gone from a high school level to a couple of national championships and regional championships. He was an amazing college player, an attorney, the whole bit. He's seen the whole gamut. I am going to let Kraig tell the rest in a minute. Kraig, thank you for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me and all the nice words.
Absolutely.
Usually on the pitch, it's a little different. So
it's been fun to see what you've done, not only with your teams, but just from a building your team's perspective too. The players are cohesive, and we created a culture that is so unique. You always know when you're playing Eagle. That's Eagle High School, the team over here. When I see you, I see the pillar strength. I see you as the individual that is making things happen. In recent times, something that I've really appreciated is your willingness to be vulnerable. We'll get there in a second. So what is going on?
I mean, right now we're in off season, so it's a weird time. I'll say that for sure. I think it's one of those times where I preach this to my coaching staff quite a bit because I learned to value our off seasons much better because we spend with our off season training program and season itself probably about somewhere between 9 to 10 months of the year dedicated to the girls and the program and the team. We don't get that time to really check in with ourselves, do that kind of work for everything. It's something that every off season I make it a goal of working on myself personally. I've talked with our coaches about because they get ramped up and they get into the off season mode of, well, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this. I'm like, pump the brakes, take some time off. It will all come together. One thing that I trust and believe in is it will all come together. We have these skills, the knowledge, and the work ethic to put it all together. But if we're depleted and we keep grinding, it's not going to happen the way that we think it's going to. It's going to be actually a lot more difficult. And so that's something that last week I basically took the entire week off from rugby, period. Well, there's a couple administrative things I have to do for the school district or the team, like setting up the team banquet and stuff like that. Like nothing that's X's and O's or with players. I haven't really talked to our players at all in a week and a half. I think the first time I sent a message in our group chat was on Wednesday since the season. And that was mainly because we're putting together a winter clothing drive and teaming up with a local nonprofit to do that. So scheduled that and sent a heads up. This is what's going on. Here's our off-season schedule. I think it's important for us to take the time off and really focus on what's important to us as well. I do a lot of self-work during this time because it's the time I get for myself. And I encourage my coaches to do it too, because we have to be, to me, I always think of it as if we're really like this family concept here, the coaches, we are the head of the family, right? We have to be the best version of ourselves for our players and our family. And I think that's a message that could go to a lot of men who are husbands and fathers too. The one thing that I think is important is working on being the best version of yourself for your family. I'm lucky in that realm. I take the time to do it. And I encourage my coaches to do the same thing. That's what's been going on for the past couple of weeks, other than prepping for this trial I have in December.
And that's the other thing too, is because not only you are an elite coach, you're an attorney. So you have cases, clients, hours to bill. That balance is huge. I'm going to go into a couple part question here. And the first of them will have to do with yourself. And then the other one will have to do with players as well, especially from a sports perspective. I just find this so fascinating, this balance, right? The assumption when you think of any coach from NFL, NBA, whatever, it literally is a 24/7 proposition. And a lot of times people don't understand they do have to disconnect. I'm interested in how you find balance and keep your sanity for one thing, because I'm going to be honest, after this season, I was done. How do you maintain that balance and that integrity of developing self?
I think it's It's been a learned skill for sure. Like, it's not something that I stepped into coaching and just like, oh, it was there, because it definitely was not there. I was so wound up and just depleted. One of our players, Abby Schroeder, who's Adam Schroeder's daughter, played for me. And she was just like, you need to go see a therapist. And I was like, huh. You know what? Maybe you have a good point. With the balance, though, it's been a learned skill. Part of it's been, I think, just like luck, honestly. And other part is like just learning how to manage all the different things. I'll say I am a big proponent of mental health. I was one of those guys who thought taking care of your mental health was just for crazy people, or like there's shame that's tied to it and everything like that. And I've learned completely the opposite through different life experiences. So, number one thing I would say is find a good therapist, because there's different stressors that come with everything, right? Like trying to maintain a job, relationships, and then coach as well. For me, I am responsible for 37 players in our program right now. So I'm responsible for 37 high school girls. I don't have kids of my own. I don't have daughters of my own. Anybody who says there's no difference between coaching boys and girls does not understand that by any means.
Not
Like,
true.
yeah, exactly. They both have different challenges for sure. But as a guy, there are things and circumstances that I can't relate to. I haven't experienced. There's always, I call them girl dad moments, where things come up that you're just like, oh, I did not think about that. I got roasted by one of my players, I think right before state, and we were lifting in the weight room. One of my players was like, yeah, I'm exhausted. And it just feels like every time I'm lifting, I can't put up as much weight as possible. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's okay. It's towards the end of the season, you're tired. And she's like, just about once a month, I get really exhausted and just can't put up the weight. And I was like, cool, thanks. You have your job, you have coaching, you could have a family or just relationships, period. You have all those things going on, and life is still happening, right? Like the river's still flowing. Things that happen are completely out of your control. For me, one of the big things that helps me out is I see my therapist, Garrett Price. I see him once a week, every week. I just saw him yesterday, every Thursday. And it's kind of just working through things and developing the right skills to help manage all that stuff. For me, what does help a lot with the balance is just where am I acting from that position, because my job, sometimes I call it my side hustle, even though it is very demanding, especially with coaching, it is a lot of work. Anybody who's coached for me knows it's a lot of work. It's the number one disclaimer I give to coaches who want to come on board. Hey, I'm going to tell you right now, this is work. This is not, you just show up 1 or 2 days a week and you're not prepared and you just do your spiel about what you did back when you played 10 years ago. You're going to have to study film. You're going to have to help create practice plans. You're going to have to know your practice plan before you even come in. If you're teaching something, you better know it and think through it, because like it's going to go wrong. You can be best prepared ahead of time to address when it goes wrong. And it is a lot of work, but to me, it's worthwhile work, because the one thing I tell myself, especially, is that every time, especially during the hard times, is I'm acting from a place of love. I love my team. I love my players. They are my family. I love my coaches. They're some of my closest friends. They're basically like brothers to me. Sometimes they annoy the hell out of me. They're my best friends. We literally fight like brothers sometimes. Oh, yeah, for sure. But it's always acting out of love. And that's such a big motivating, driving force into everything I do. You find the energy, you find the balance, you set those priorities. I think then it's just like everything else, it kind of comes into play. It's a weird kind of thing because it all works out the way it needs to. And that's the beauty of it. But I think number one thing for me is you always have to act out of self, and choosing to act out of love is the biggest one.
We've had the conversation. There were some players that I didn't know that we were associated through with their parents. And I remember one of them that had passed away, Abby, it was a devastating thing. And you could tell how much you not only loved her, but loved the family. And that was very touching because I had seen you up to that point as, man, this is a guy that coaches Eagle. He kicked our butts. How do we go back and combat that and blah, blah, blah. But just to understand that side of you, that it really is about that love. And because of that, the concentration you give to those kids is astounding. I know how much you study the film. I know a lot of your players. Just looking at that intensity, I know you do jujitsu. I know you box it.
Well, that's not my wheelhouse whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I got that
I
one
think I got a
wrong.
whopping like two moves in jujitsu, and probably anybody who actually has a belt could probably smoke me at it.
Everything that I've heard, I mean, even your job is tough. And then there's a balance of love. I'm very interested just knowing you and knowing your persona because I would never look at it as anything weak. I know that you allow yourself to be vulnerable, but the stigma about going to get help from an external source is often intimidating. And the more I
Yeah.
learn about this field, it's amazing to see when people make that decision. Wondering, how did you make that decision? Overcome the stigma, going to the counselor, and what have you learned in that process too?
Oh, yeah. I think it's a culmination of a lot of things coming together and hitting a point. I grew up in a pretty, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great childhood.
Sure.
Yeah, I grew up not knowing my father, not knowing anything about him. He's never been in my life, stemming all the way back to my grandparents that I did know. They were alcoholics and very abusive towards my mother. So then my mother, doing the best she can, still did not learn a lot of the skills to raise us properly. There's a lot of childhood trauma she had. She had me when she was 20 years old. And as a single mother, there's still parts that weren't healed from her that crept into my childhood. It led to some difficult situations in my life. I have a half sister, the one I recognize as my biological
Sure.
sibling. Her father was very emotionally and physically abusive to me. And that started when I was about 6 years old. It started with the emotional, mental abuse. And
Wow.
then I turned physical when I was 10. I was always a big kid growing up and not like fat, fat. Like I ended up after all the abuse, like definitely getting to be a fat kid for sure. But I was always tall. I was always like a bigger build, everything like that. So like when I was 10, he decided to start teaching me to be
Oh
a,
man.
that's like when the physical abuse would start happening because he would actually hit me. He would play a game with me where he would hit me as hard as he could and drop me. And I
What in
had
the
to get up without him telling me to. There were points where my left arm was covered in bruises from my shoulder blade down to my elbow. He was a master manipulator too. He had bipolar disorder and schizophrenia and was very good at covering up his tracks. Where he would hit me, it'd be intentional because I wouldn't take my shirt off or anything and no one else could see the bruises pretty much.
man?
I went through physical abuse, emotional abuse. It almost, before all that, it almost broke me. My first time I attempted suicide, I was 9 years old. I tried to hang myself in my closet. Fortunately, I definitely say it's divine intervention with
Yeah.
it. The rack that held hangers and everything like that broke. And the knot that I tied, maybe I was just stupid or not, like the knot with my belt broke off. That was the first time. I tried again a second time when I was 10. I tried to cut my throat and my mom stopped me.
Oh man.
And all that just took a toll. And there's a lot of trauma that didn't get addressed at that time. And then my life was kind of, there was a lack of stability in my childhood. So we moved a lot. We ended up, because my mom was facing her own demons, moving across the country at one point to Kentucky.
Oh man.
And then my mom worked a lot. She didn't have a bachelor's or anything like that. So she was a CNA. She blew out her knee working and then stepped away from being a CNA, but she was still working a ton. This is after she divorced my sister's dad, fortunately, because I finally told on him, even though he threatened to kill me
Oh
if
my
I ever
gosh.
did, because he came after my sister. And so that was the final straw with all of it and told my mom. It was interesting, but then so many things happened afterwards. Our house burnt down, and so we lived in a hotel for 3 months when I was 11. So we were technically homeless, and we moved back into that house because it had so much smoke damage. They had to redo everything. That was just depressing. So then we moved across the country. Mom violated the divorce decree and she got served for criminal contempt for taking my sister out of the state. So then
Oh.
we ended up moving back. We ended up moving to Vegas actually. During that time, I had to grow up very young and
Mhm.
take care of my sister because my mom was just gone so much. I'm 11, 10, 11 years old. My sister, she's 6, 7 years in age difference with me.
Yeah.
So there's a handful of times where I'm taking care of a 3 or 4 year old.
Wow.
So that all just kind of built up. We moved back to Vegas when I was 11, just turning 12.
Mm.
And then it was kind of like that fresh start. But at that point, it took me a long time to realize this. And kudos to my mom for structuring our life better at that point because we were actually homeless. We were at my grandma and uncle's place in Vegas. I slept on the love seat, and my sister and my mom slept on the couch. And I never felt like I was homeless. So, fortunately, my mom's love kind of structured it that way. That whole situation made me realize how kind of crappy my family was, especially my uncle. He had the master bedroom, and then he had a whole nother bedroom that was his like gym. And he never gave that up to us. If my sister needed a place to stay with my niece, they are taking my bedroom and I would sleep on my couch. And my uncle never even offered that.
Mm.
And so we're all just cooped up in there. That was also a time when my mom wanted to make sure I started to get into mental health counseling because I was super obese at that point. I was over 200 pounds at 11 years old. Yeah. And
Wow.
depressed. I started getting violent as well. And so my mom got me into counseling, and honestly, like I fought it tooth and nail. That was the first time. I was like, I'm not a crazy person. I'm not this. I'm not that. As a 12-year-old, I thought this. I went to counseling, but it just wasn't working as I think what was needed at the time because I was never a dumb kid, but I also knew I was pretty smart, honestly. And so I would game it and figured out what my counselor wanted me to say. That's probably like also coming from like the trauma that I experienced of like you learn what to say to avoid those situations. I figured out the same thing with my counselor and he just wasn't the one I needed because of that. So I stopped going to counseling. We actually moved to the other side of Vegas over in Henderson. We still lived with my grandma and uncle, but we got a new house. So life was actually better for once. I had my own bedroom. My mom and my sister still shared a bedroom, but my sister was so young. This is all happening now when I'm in middle school. Looking back, it's some of the biggest development years for any child, like your teenage years. Fortunately, at that time, everything was super stable in my life. I was going to the same school. We weren't homeless. I have all these friends at school, everything like that. We were there for when I was in seventh grade. And then in eighth grade, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. That was the punch in the gut moment in my life. It was just a messed up situation. My mom worked at Walmart and had just become eligible for health insurance. And this is all pre-ACA. And so when she was doing her health insurance screening, they found the breast cancer.
Oh.
They considered it a pre-existing condition and denied her coverage. That situation was a huge punch in the gut. I knew that my biological grandfather died from cancer when my mom was a kid. It's just kind of in my head, like being a 14-year-old boy, I just assume my mom's it's a death sentence. And it's also like my mom's the only real parent I've had in my entire life, and now I'm potentially losing her. I just went into a dark place as a kid, and it's something I've learned through therapy. People who go through a lot of trauma start to develop different parts of their brain as protective mechanisms. The part of you that's also experienced the trauma. And so for me, there was two parts that kind of started like one, I think this part manifests actually a long time ago when I was being abused as that protective mechanism. But he came in even more full swing during this time. I call him Chad because that was a college joke when there was a different personality of me that people don't normally see. They'd call him. And so that's why I called him. And it was like during those times that I felt like the world was falling apart. So as a kid, my defense mechanism was, well, everybody who is close to me and I love will abandon me. And so the smart thing to do is just get them away from me as fast as possible. So that's what I started doing, cutting off people. During that time, I got in 2 fights and they were with my closest friends.
Oh,
It was like those moments where you just black out and go after somebody. That's exactly what happened. Then I came to as I have some adult pulling me off of them. And it was all part of those protection mechanisms because to me, it was that everybody I love is just going to leave me at that point. I think my sister's the only one who I figured is just never going to leave me. And my sister and I were very close during those times. I started getting into things I shouldn't have, hanging out with the wrong people, trying drugs. And I'm 14 years old at this point doing this stuff, sneaking off in the desert and smoking pot. And I still managed to do well in school. But then freshman year came, and that was a whole different story. The jump from middle school to high school, friendship dynamics changed naturally anyway. So a lot of my close friends I wasn't really friends with anymore. My grades started going down tremendously. I was on an honors track in Vegas and failing 3 out of my 6 classes. It was just because I wouldn't do the work. It didn't have anything to do with whether I knew the material. I felt hopeless. It was kind of like a blessing in disguise that I had reconnected with my sister's grandparents in Idaho, like more recently, because we had a massive falling out after the abuse, their son's abuse. They didn't believe me. They didn't believe my mom, all this stuff. Like we would have saw it, all that stuff. And so like me being who I was, basically told them like go fuck themselves. And I'm like, 13 years old when I did this. Fortunately, we reconnected over things. And it was also during this time that my mom, she's getting treatment set up. She was accepted into a case study with GlaxoSmithKline for a new cancer treatment that they were working on. And so that was a blessing for her because it was the only way she could afford treatment because she didn't have to pay for it.
Right.
But that was going to require her to be basically in the hospital 24/7 because they got, do the actual treatment, do monitoring, everything like that. That came up. And then it's like, well, what are we going to do with my sister and I? I had this whole plan of I was going to drop out of school, get a job and support the family, being 15-year-old me at the time. Like, I'm like, well, I'm eligible to work now. I can get a full-time job. And it was also during that time, my grandma and my uncle, who we lived with, they were coming up with a plan to kick my mom and my sister out on the street and keep me somehow. My grandma told me this out loud, like I was just going to be cool with this for some reason. So I told my mom about it. My mom definitely did not have a good relationship with my sister's grandparents, but she reached out to them, told them the situation, and asked them if my sister and I can live in Idaho with them because we have to get out. It was right after the third quarter of my freshman year. My sister and I moved up to Idaho to live with my grandparents. There was a moment that changed the trajectory of my life. Fortunately, I'll still never forget it. And I hope I someday run into this woman. It was my ninth grade honors English teacher, Miss Garrett. My mom told her what's going on, and honors English was my worst class. I wasn't just failing, I was failing that class. I remember after that, Miss Garrett kept me after class. And this was about a month before I moved out. And she sat me down and she was like, I know this is unprofessional, but this is bullshit what you're doing right now. Your mom's going through a tough time. You're going through a tough time. And everything you're doing right now is going to ruin your life. You right now have a golden opportunity for a second chance. And when that happens, we are going to do the work here now to get you up to that point. But when you get up there, you better seize the opportunity. It was just like that moment. I was like, yes, ma'am. It was also like that moment as a kid being in such a dark place. It was the first time I felt like someone saw me and truly believed in me and who I can be and saw that potential outside of my family for sure. When I got to Idaho, I changed my life. I didn't touch drugs. I didn't even party in high school. I was the DD for everybody. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. I did well in school, even though school got easy. Idaho schools were so much easier than Vegas schools. For some reason, I ended up graduating high school. I was still a big guy in high school. That was one thing. And I think that was my grandparents' home too. It was just not a conducive structure for eating well, health, and everything like that. I graduated high school at 370 pounds. I was huge.
Wow. I would have never have thought that. Never in a million. No way.
Oh, yeah, no, I was a big boy for sure. Like I played
Wow.
football at like 350, and then after football and especially my senior year, I just kept putting on weight because
Mhm.
now there was no exercise, right? Because I didn't wrestle. I definitely didn't do track. So I was just like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna eat all the damn time. I graduated high school, but there was still a lot of trauma and everything locked up. And there was a lot of protective mechanisms still kicking in that held me back in certain aspects of my life. That was a struggle. After high school, I went through my first real heartbreak. I got turned down by a girl I really liked. And one of my friends told me, it was one of my close friends at the time, that it was because she said that she could never see herself in a relationship with someone like me. Turns out it was funny because me and this girl are still friends till today. We were talking back in July and I told her about this situation. She goes, "What? That was it?" And she's like, "No, I said that because you weren't Mormon and I was super Mormon at that time." Like, I was like, really? The lesson is about making assumptions in your head, carrying them for a long time. That was so bad. I was like, really? This is like the stupid assumption I've carried for, I don't know, I'm 36 now, nearly 18 years.
Oh,
And then the truth finally comes out later. At that time, it was tough. It was needed though, because then it created this giant shift in me of, okay, I'm going to lose weight and do everything. That summer after my senior year of high school, I went from 370 down to like about 310. I lost 60 pounds that summer alone. Started understanding diet and exercise and everything like that. I was dedicated to it because I saw how being overweight affected a lot of people in my family, and I just didn't want to be that. But even when you lose all that weight, there's good motivating factors, but then there's still underlying problems. I carried that going into college. My freshman year of college was pretty rough. And I think that was just because of environment, because I went to NNU and I stayed in Nampa and I was staying at my grandparents' house. I was still hanging out with friends from high school that I probably shouldn't have been hanging out with because they just weren't going anywhere. They were happy with where they were and doing the same old things that they did back in high school. After my freshman year, I was on academic probation. I think I finished with a 1.8 GPA. I dropped out a semester. I coached football for that semester, and that was basically what I was living off of. It was my coach's stipend for football and delivering pizza. I had free housing because I was staying at my grandparents'. Part of the reason I stayed was because my sister was still there.
mhm.
And I always wanted to make sure my sister was safe and taken care of. And then I made the decision that I had to get out of Nampa. So I transferred to Lewis Clark State up in Lewiston and did a semester there. Realized that is not the place for me by any means. And then I ended up transferring to Idaho State, where one of my good friends from high school who was going as a freshman. That's when things change, but there's still underlying issues from my childhood and growing up that are still there. The way I explain it is kind of like you wear a mask, right? There's still times when everything underneath starts showing up. So that was college for me. I found rugby. I played for Idaho State, became a good player. Ram challenged me to get in even better shape. And because I was about 310 when I started playing rugby. And
Right.
then after my first season that fall, he sat me down and he's like, "Hey, the person who, Javi, who's one of my best friends to this day, I was the best man in his wedding. I literally just saw him Monday because I got a flat tire and he runs a tire shop. He was actually moving back to Boise and he was starting over me like all the time. And he was moving back to Boise and Ram sat me down and he was like, "Hey, man, like, here's the situation. I need you to come into the spring season weighing 250. And I was like, are you kidding me? And you know what? I accepted the challenge and like, yeah, I came in the season at 255 that next spring. I literally just ate salads all day. It was probably the worst weight cut you could ever have. I kept on that trajectory, but throughout college, it was hard having connection with everything. You're so busy that you occupy your time with being busy so that you don't have to think about and address everything. Same thing in law school. I ended up going to law school after I student taught at Eagle. And law school was where the mental health aspects started to surface more and more. There was more pressure. Playing rugby was that release of everything. So I could balance school and sports easy. But in law school, I didn't have that release. You can work out and work your butt off, but it doesn't get your mind away from things. At least for me, when I'm playing or at practice, that is the only thing that matters. Everything else is drowned out. But working out, it doesn't do it. When I work out, that's when all the thoughts start flowing through my head even more. In law school, I didn't have that release, and you're already in a high intensity, high pressure environment. And so that's when a lot of the mental health things started. The first time I ever had an anxiety attack was my first year of law school. I didn't know what it was. I called my mom freaking out. I'm over on the East Coast. I called my mom in Vegas. I don't know what's going on. My heart's racing a million miles per hour. She's like, yeah, Kraig, you're having a panic attack. And I really didn't know. I started taking a supplement to help manage that part of it. I got through my first year of law school. I feel like by probably like the grace of God, honestly, because it was hard. I ended up transferring to Concordia, which was back here in Boise. There was a break where I got a really cool internship. The whole reason I transferred back was one, I don't think there's anything such as coincidence. My car engine blew a head gasket the day of my last final in Virginia. And I was like, oh, I don't have a car. Cool. Virginia Beach is not a convenient city. There's not public transportation or anything. I got a really cool internship in Bulgaria for the summer. I set everything up that I was going to fly out of Boise and then go to Bulgaria. So I spent 2 weeks here in Boise and was just like kind of like on the edge about looking at transferring to Concordia or U of I. I met with both of them. When I was in Bulgaria, I got accepted into Concordia and they just got their accreditation for it. So it seemed like a thing. And I was talking with my mentor like a lot about it. I always feel like my life was tough. And then you listen to him and his stories, and I'm like, cool. Okay, buddy, because he grew up in Bulgaria, like during the USSR and everything.
Oh, man.
He used to work for the USSR, so he had some stories. Ironically, he was the kindest, nicest, genuine human I think I had ever met. And he was talking to me about it, and because when I got accepted in the Concordia, I had a choice, and he could tell I was off. Like I could not figure things out. And he was like, I prayed about it. I think you should go back to Boise. Even though he had great ties with my law school that I was out in Virginia, he was like, I think you should go back to Boise. I took his advice and I came back. I was just about to turn 25. And on my 25th birthday, I had the moment where I really had to start taking charge of my mental health, and I didn't know what to do because on my 25th birthday I just woke up completely depressed. I locked myself in my room all day. I had suicidal ideations, everything like that. I mean, I had a plan on how I was going to kill myself. And so I scheduled a doctor's appointment and they put me on anti-anxiety medication, and that helped out a little bit. Life keeps going on, right? And it was when I started coaching and also trying to now be like a baby attorney as well, that like everything starts like adding on. When Abby was like, you need to go see a counselor, I kind of took it as a joke, but I was also like, she's probably right, honestly. And because I also had a very intense job as an attorney at that time because I was a prosecutor. So I'm dealing with my own unanswered trauma, and I'm dealing with trauma of literally victims and crimes, and also things that my players are going through as well. So I'm taking on a lot. And also there's parts of me that I haven't addressed. I started seeing my counselor, Garrett, and he helped me out a lot. Even during COVID, we saw each other. And Then it was, oh, I got in this great relationship and everything like that, and everything's sunshine and rainbows in life. And I'm like, oh, I don't need to keep seeing Garrett. We're good now. I'm healed and everything. And looking back, we didn't even touch the surface yet because I was in that relationship for a year and a half, prepping to propose. I had my plan out, and then that relationship ended abruptly over a text message in playoffs.
Oh,
That fell apart a year before that's when Abby was diagnosed with cancer. And then in February the next year, she passed away.
yeah.
I had just gone through this relationship where I thought the plan was going to be this, and that fell apart. Losing Abby, I was in my head that it was going to be treatable and she's going to get
Right.
through this. Losing her nearly broke me. I went into a dark place. I was just talking with Garrett about this a couple of days ago. I didn't feel like I was worthy of living because here I am as a 34-year-old man who hasn't done anything in his life, yet a 21-year-old girl who's done so many great things in such a short amount of time on this earth
Yeah. Yeah.
lost her life. It just spiraled me into a dark place. And I still kept on the mask, but people who were close to me started to notice. I was once again cutting off friendships and relationships. Any woman who tried to get close to me, I was like, nope, nope. It was like, yeah, first you're like there and you're like, hell yeah, this is awesome. Then it was like, oh, you're getting too close. I am cutting you off instantly. It didn't get better. It was one of those things of you you hit it and like you start to realize these patterns. I remember because I was dating a girl about 3, 4 months after Abby passed. We hit it off and it was great. It was a wake up moment for me
Right.
because all the patterns started kicking in, like the protective mechanisms.
Mm.
And I remember stepping back from that. And I mean, we're still dating, like it was nothing official, but I realized I told myself, I need to heal more before I do this.
Hmm.
And that was like the hit that I needed. So that's when I tried to see another counselor and it just didn't work. He was not my vibe by any
Yeah.
means. Like,
Yeah.
nice guy, probably a great counselor. We were not on the same level about
Right.
things. And so then I fortunately was able to get back with Garrett. But you have those wake up moments of, there's so much going on. I didn't even know what it was that was going on at that time.
Hmm.
I felt like I needed to get help because I couldn't keep going through life this way. And you find something bigger than yourself at the time that's important to you.
Right.
And it can serve as a motivating factor that there's a bigger picture here and there's things that you are going to have to do to even accomplish that picture. That was my moment of really addressing my mental health. And I've seen Garrett for a year before what I call the start of the Great Awakening for me,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was when my niece was born. And it hit me of like, oh, I'm just going through the motions of life. Even with my counseling, I was still miserable. Then you get this little ball of a human here who it's just like unconditional love automatically, and it just
Yes.
changed my life completely. I think that's when the healing work started getting really serious. Another event happened and it got super serious all of a sudden, and that's where I am now.
Right.
That's a
Right.
long way to answer your question, I
And
guess.
I love that you shared that because that is such a massive journey. And oftentimes, when I talk with people on the podcast and in regular day to day, you don't get that deep backstory. And you have to understand that knowing you in the capacity that I know you, there's tremendous strength that you convey to your players as well. But not only to your players, just those around you. I look at your coaching staff, for instance, and they all have something special.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is you call it a brotherhood. It really is. But the brotherhood doesn't come easy. I'm just seeing all these life experiences in such a way that makes it so that you surround yourself with people that are real.
Yeah.
And that also goes into what, and at least it's been in my experience as part of that healing process. I cannot believe not only the weight loss, but the abuse and then the resilience factor. All I'm seeing here is some ridiculous resilience. I don't know if I could have ever pulled through something like that. I can't thank you enough for being that vulnerable because people aren't willing to go. What you've just done is you've made it okay. I hope as they listen to this, they understand that there is something you could do about it. There are people you can reach out to, and more importantly, not to believe the assumptions that say, hey, man, I can't do this. I'll be too much of a kook or whatever it might be. Amazing story. And again, thank you, Kraig.
In the past like few weeks,
Yeah.
2 weeks actually, like I've came to like more understand, especially because like healing from that type of trauma, I don't think there's just some aha breakthrough moment where you're just like, I'm just going to do this. Especially if you go through it and you push through and then you finally hit that breaking point and it's like, okay, this is the next step. The journey's not easy. It's literally like a roller coaster ride. It's like hiking. If you've ever hiked a ridge where you get to the top and you're feeling great, and then you look and you're like, oh crap. Like you have to go back down, and then there's the next ridge. You have maybe about 6 feet of space on each side. You're going to hit your high points, you're going to hit your low points, and it's a constant journey. And
Yeah.
something I've learned within the last week, I've really come to accept because of like Abby, like because I just happened like honestly come across her Instagram profile like a couple weeks ago. I was going through it and she posted the 1 year anniversary of her being diagnosed with cancer. Something I've been on is letting go of the past. I had the wrong perception of what that actually meant because generally when people say let go of the past, it's like forget about it, accept the bad things that happened or cut people out. Some of those things are necessary for sure. I've cut people out of the past who from my past that don't serve me. I don't forget the past though. It's not as vivid now as it was before. Abby, I can pull it up on my phone real quick because I saved it.
That's
I thought
awesome.
it was a beautiful post. I screenshot it. I won't read the whole thing, but she puts in her post, having cancer was my mission in life to show people that even in the worst times, you need to see the positives. When you focus on finding the good, you start to forget about the bad. And
That's awesome.
it was amazing. And for me, that was so helpful because one thing that stayed in my head was 2023, like 22, 23. And that's when this relationship happened and Abby passed away, and it wasn't a good year. That's what I was focused on so much. It helped me look back and realize all the good, honestly, beautiful moments
Right.
that happened during all these dark times. Like even I've looked back even at like points of abuse. And those are sometimes the hardest moments to find something good in. And there
Yeah.
were still beautiful moments in those. The love I had for my sister and just stepping in to protect her and the love she had for me, because honestly, like I was going to kill her dad. And my
Right.
sister begged me not to do it.
Right.
For a long time, I thought it was because it was her dad. My sister actually told me, no, it's because I loved you and I didn't want to see you become a monster. And
Wow.
it's just finding even like those beautiful moments that helped me let go of the past and also just understand where I'm going in the future. Mental health and addressing mental health is definitely a journey. It is not a one day you're going to wake up magically healed or you're going to have this aha moment of clarity that you're just going to go seek help. Like it, you get pushed to it. I hope other people understand that and seek the right help, especially when addressing mental health. Don't rely on social media. Those people don't know you. They're giving general advice. Find a good therapist or counselor and use the people around you to help flourish that too. You start to see things that maybe a long time ago, or even when you're in areas you just didn't see before. That
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
a beautiful
Yeah.
thing.
Crick, this has been such a fantastic conversation. I've always appreciated everything that I've learned from you on the pitch, but understanding everything that you've gone through, the resilience came from the learning and your ability to learn and apply the learning rather than say stagnant or in a depressed mode, but to do something about it. It's inspiring because I know I've been in funks before. The power of learning and the power of bursting the assumptions and the power of moving forward like you have has been something that anyone can learn from. And I don't know what else to say except thanks because that's a deep place that you just took us through. But at the same time, looking at the results, not only in the personal life, but also seeing a level of both cohesiveness and impact you've had on the team as a coach. You couldn't have done that without going through the things that you did. It's just one of the things, at least in my mind, that makes it so that deep caring for the team and their not only well-being, but more importantly, to hold them accountable to live up their potential comes from something that you've learned instead of defining your identity by, which is gigantic, man.
Thank you. This is actually, I guess, publicly really told this whole story. I think my life, looking back at it, like it's been definitely difficult, but it's also been such a great blessing because of the fact of it's given me the ability to, well, I mean, it's put me in the situations and like frankly, what we're talking about with learning, it's given me the ability to learn how to be the best coach I can be, the best person, like the best, hopefully one day husband and father that I can be. Like it's all building into that somehow. We talk about the team a lot. And like you said, you can't really share in that experience, but something I've learned more recently too is that it's crazy to me how many people share the same feelings about certain situations like grief, shame, everything like that. And it comes in different packages, right? But it's like you can hold the mirror. For me, I had a rough childhood for sure. And another one of my friends had an absolutely amazing childhood and everything. And yet it's crazy. Like we're so close, but when we actually talk about the things that we struggle with, we have the same struggle. And a lot of people think it's so personal to you, these struggles and this feeling, but there's probably somebody out there that's even probably close to you that has the same struggles. And the big thing that it took me to recognize is one, I can't go out there and save them. That's not my job. I can't do it. A lot of times I had to realize it's because I'm trying to save myself, but I was ignoring that part. And then it's the willingness to hold that mirror up for them and basically be like, I understand, and I'm just going to be here with you through it. I think that applies a lot to coaching too, because regardless of, yeah, I'm a 36-year-old man. I coach high school girls, but my players have gone through not the same experience. Some of them have those same feelings that come from it. And that's where, us as a coaching staff, because we all have a diverse background and everything, we're able, like, I feel like hold that mirror and just be like, I get it, and share that experience in that way. Yeah.
Man, I have a feeling you're going to continue to learning. Looking
Oh, yeah.
at the story that you shared, people think it's a straight line progression, but it's really a diagonal thing, and it's along that line is ups and downs. As long as those ups and downs equate to moving upward, and that's what I see you're doing right now, man.
I don't think you'll ever get to the finish line. And I think the finish line is death, right? And life continues on. The thing that I appreciate so much now is that when those moments do happen, I have these skills to manage it and work through it versus just shut down or hide, because they're going to happen, right? There's not a lot of guarantees in life, but one thing I can guarantee is you're going to lose at some point.
Yes.
Right? And whether that loss is of someone or something you love, whether it's heartbreak, sports, a job, whatever, you are going to lose at some point. And if you can have the skills to manage through that loss better, that's the gift to it for me. It is.